This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
This is Cindy Palmer, and I'm the chair of the Open Space Committee, and I'm calling the meeting to order of the Open Space Committee of January 5th, 2023. And present, we have, in addition to myself, we have committee members Terry Ann Hogue at large. We have Paula Mack representing assessors, Parks and Recs, Parks. Diana Fetterman representing Conservation Commission. We have Janet Brown representing CPC and two at-large members, Stephen Thor Johnson, and actually one at-large member. And then we have a guest currently, and that's Ed Buckley. And I represent the planning board. So we do have a quorum. Thank you very much. And as I mentioned a little earlier, this is a recorded meeting. It doesn't change anything about what we do, but it is available for the public to see. So moving forward, we do expect Joy Piper to join us. I haven't heard anything different. Wait one sec. Oh, there she is. I got to admit her. Great. That's great. Hi, Joy. She's still connecting. A couple of short housekeeping items. Sometimes when we're on a Zoom meeting, we get feedback if too many people have their mics open. That's been my experience. Right now I don't hear any feedback, but if somebody's dog starts barking or, some loud noise occurs in their house, it can be distracting. So if you can all see your own mute buttons, you can, as an option. I see Ed just did, and Janet did, and Stephen did, Paula did. You can mute yourselves, but you have to remember to unmute when you want to speak. It's not critical, but it is an option for you. And if we have, like if somebody walks into the room and starts talking to you and you want to have that conversation be not recorded, that's the option for you. We still have this option to do Zoom meetings under the governor's approval. This is sort of still in the pandemic era, and it's a nice thing. I happen to like live meetings, but sometimes live meetings aren't great. And I also recognize that some people, have to get from one thing to the other, and Zoom works best for them, or they have personal commitments that make it better for them. Okay, having said that, there is an agenda. It's posted in My Town Government every time. We have to post, according to meeting law, minimally 48 hours in advance. We have to post an agenda, and we have to certainly post the meeting minimally 48 hours in advance. After the meeting, after we approve minutes, Janet, who is our clerk, goes ahead, and once we have minutes approved, she posts through My Town Government. She also presents them to the town clerk, the approved minutes from the previous meeting or meetings. Okay, open time for the public. There's only one member of the public here presently, and that's Ed. And I will give you this opportunity, Ed, if you wish to say anything, or you can just wait and talk anytime you want. Do you have a comment at this moment, Ed?
No, I just... Actually, I submitted my application today, so I'm still just listening and learning. Yeah.
We appreciate it tremendously. Thank you so much, Ed. And Ed is identified on his screen as EIRA3. There is no 2 after that, Ed, just an FYI. It's EIRA3. Okay, great. And I'm listed as boards and committees only because this is a town account. And this doesn't have my regular name on it. So I'm not named boards and committees. Okay, next will be review of minutes. Janet, in advance of this meeting, sent out the minutes of the December 1 meeting. I had a chance to review them, and I think others did as well. Does anybody have any suggestions, comments, anything to say about the minutes? Just speak.
They're fine.
Approval.
Stephen, did you say something? I didn't catch that.
I move approval.
All right. I hear a motion to approve as written. Do I hear a second? Have to unmute if you wish to second.
I'll second.
Who was that? That was Terry Ann. Great, thanks. So Terry Ann seconded.
Brown
Do you hear
second.
any further discussion?
No.
All right, hearing none, please vote. And I'm going to do a roll call vote. I'm going to call your name, say aye or nay if you approve them. Terry Ann,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
Diana,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Joy.
Aye.
Okay, great. So they're approved as written. Okay, moving on. Committee reports, to the extent that they are consistent with whatever the Open Space Committee's guidelines and needs are. I'm going to start by saying we do not have yet, maybe won't for a long time, have a representative from the Board of Assessors. I have to present some rather unfortunate news that the individual named Dave Arnold, who was in fact a very professional assessor and assisted the Board of Assessors, passed away just a few days ago. And I'm terribly sorry to hear that. It's a big loss for the Board of Assessors and for our town, because he was serving in the role, in addition to chair of the Board of Assessors, he was assisting in the role of assessor and providing the service out of his high-level expertise. So that's really unfortunate. I don't know if anybody of you knew him, but I understand he was really good friends with Darcy Gasparini, who's also on the Board of Assessors. So that's just a bit of news to remember Dave by. I have a feeling they're going to be desperately looking for somebody to fill his role, and it'd be terribly difficult. They're still looking for a regular full-time assessor, and it's a difficult situation. Moving on to more committee reports. Paula, would you like to speak about parks, please? Anything related to open space?
No, actually, there was nothing in our last meeting in reference to open space.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Diana, do you want to speak on Conservation Commission related to open space?
Just update that we submitted and were approved for all the Manhan Meadow in paperwork on phase 1. I don't know if we got the reimbursement yet or not, but I think it was approved to be reimbursed. So that was a big day. And 3-4 years later. And the town also signed the deed with the railroad, giving us access along the rail bed trailhead into Manhan Meadows. So it is open again. I don't know that the signs were made, but I don't know if they've been posted because the ground was frozen. And I haven't been down there. And also, Kestrel did its annual walk monitoring of the conservation restriction at Clearwater Conservation Area, and they were happy. They said everything looked really good. And that was thanks to a couple of families and groups that took out some fencing that should not have been there, that they noticed last year in the monitoring. So I think that's all I can think of right now. It's not really related to open space, but I thought you might be interested.
I think it's very related, everything you just announced. And I happen to know that a lot of people worked on the Manhan Meadows grants. Specifically, Diana worked a ton on that. She tells me about it all the time.
And I complain about it all the time. Well, there's two. That one's done. They're still waiting for this Chapter 91 permit for the bridge.
Well,
So they've been waiting for months.
There
and
must
I
be
don't
a
know.
quote somewhere, some famous philosopher, for he, she who waits will win, or something like that. Is that famous?
Well, there's Milton. He
Oh.
also serves who only stands and waits.
Okay, thank
But he
you.
was blind, so.
Great. Thank you for that report. That's really good.
Congratulations. Great news.
Thank you.
Yep.
And it is great news. And I know it was reported in the newspaper. And I had a friend call me from West Springfield who saw it in more regional news and was excited for us. And I know there's a lot of bicyclists in the area that, and it's going to take a while to build the actual rail trail, but it's all steps, and it might happen in our lifetime. And that's very, very exciting.
Yes, yes.
It said 2 to 4 years in the paper. The one down near the East Hampton line there,
Oh, good.
that one.
Well, they must be quoting somebody. Yeah.
Well, it was in the paper that Robert Floyd sent out.
Oh, I see.
He actually sometimes takes news articles from other publications like the Reminder and also from the Gazette, et cetera. So it is exciting for our town. We really are doing, I think, a wonderful job on many levels. All right, moving on. Joy, do you want to speak about anything from the select board regarding open space? Any particular update?
No, we discussed the right of first refusal issue that was brought up last month. And because the town really doesn't have any interest in that property, the select board moved forward with waiving whatever right of first refusal there was. Just so that
we're able to acknowledge some of that research or the research that Stephen did regarding the filing and the.
Yes, we did discuss that. And ultimately, if it was a property that the town was really considering putting a offer on and really wanted, I think that the board would have pursued, getting legal advice on how to proceed. But because it's not a property that we wanted to exercise our right of first refusal, the board didn't want to, get a legal counsel involved because it ultimately costs the town money.
Okay. Thank you, Joy. Is there anything else to report?
I have a question about that.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Joy. And thank you for carrying the water when I was not available. I think that the way the notice was written, unfortunately, it was not presenting that town with a right of first refusal. It was asking simply for a release of lien under circumstances we don't fully comprehend. So that's why I thought it was untimely and incomplete. But here we are, accepting for the moment, we will stipulate, the town's not interested in exercising a right of first refusal. But clearly, the town is entitled to some catch-up taxes.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not sure how, given the untimely death of the assessor or acting or volunteer assessor and member of the committee, we're down to one. I don't understand how this town will function.
So, sorry, I'm echoing.
Let me just interject, Steve.
Agenda. I'm sorry. The issue is about calculating taxes, if that's the critical piece of the process that the town might follow.
First of all, there's more than one person on the Board of Assessors right now. There's at least two, and there might be a few more.
Thank God.
So that's not great news, but it's better than one. Secondly, I do believe the town will file for the tax, the back taxes that'll be owed for removing it from Chapter 61. I agree, we all agree that the filing was, the language was wrong. Joy, do you want to add to that?
Sure. So the Conservation Commission in their discussion wanted the town to also make sure that there had been an affidavit filed with the assessor's department in regards to the back taxes owed and the request for them to take the property out of chapter. And so based on the conversations at Select Board, it was stated that the Board of Assessors did sign off. So the assumption is the affidavit was filed to them and they had proceeded properly in regards to the Board of Assessors.
I wish they had consulted counsel because, with all due respect, they confused two two different issues.
The right of refusal and the back taxes.
That at least, yes. And whether, in fact, the applicant may come asserting that it's an exempt use if the residential use is for a family member. I mean, there is an opportunity to be very gracious and forthcoming, but the alternative is, rather difficult to contemplate because
I'm confused. Are you? My understanding is that they are the buyers. Yes, the seller should have paid the back taxes, but it seems like they passed it on to the buyers, and the buyers are going to be paying the back taxes. That is what the select board's understanding is.
That does not comply with the Sudbury case and the Supreme Judicial Court finding that if a buyer has the intent to convert, then the town was entitled to the right of first refusal at the first instance. So the only conclusion that I, a non-attorney, could find is that they circumvented the regulations and the precedent or the findings of SJC when the sale occurred. And so when they simply ask for a release of lien without further explanation, it's really bizarre under what theory and at what cost or through what process the release of lien might be granted. It might be granted as a matter of the operation of the regulation if it's a family member. I don't want to give them an excuse, but there's been a very difficult history in this town that I've learned secondhand with people not following the process. And it then leads to this really upside down world where we're going to go and invalidate the sale? No, that's not an equitable resolution. But the town nonetheless should not roll over nor confuse the distinction between a right of first refusal and a calculation of taxes due, or simply speaking to the landowner's attorney about whether he's alleging this is an exempt transfer or use. I mean, that could be a very pleasant outcome for everyone.
Ultimately, my understanding is that if there are back taxes owed, the buyer is going to pay them, whether or not that is in line with what the case law states, or there was an agreement made that the seller was going to make that, or the buyer was going to make that payment. Ultimately, the open space, this committee, conservation committee, besides the taxes, doesn't have an interest in acquiring this land. So the right of first refusal is not something, and researching it and having legal counsel research it and repercussions or sanctions is not something that the select board is going to move forward on. If the buyer is going to be paying the back taxes, that is what the town is most concerned about. If they're, not, that's my understanding. And that I haven't seen the affidavit that was filed with the assessors, but I can request one or go to town hall and request it. But
right, that's the confusion. I'm sorry, and I will not belabor this further. The affidavit is filed by the buyer at the time of the purchase, stating that their intent is to continue the property in its current use. Now, I
don't know. Have you seen that? Have you seen the affidavit? Is that what it states?
What I understood you to describe is the notice requesting release of the lien. That's quite different.
Yes. The request of release of lien makes the assumption that they're taking it out of chapter to change the use of the land, and they are going to be paying the back taxes owed on it.
And That's fine, but that, with a look back to October, I find no affidavit filed that says that the buyer will continue it in the current use. So they screwed up the transfer and the process whereby the town would get notice. I rest my case. I mean, I'm not an attorney.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're like, there's a right. The process was screwed up from the get-go, but at the end of the day, I don't think the select board wants to spend the money on property that they're not, as long as we're getting the back taxes owed, if they're taking it out of chapter, that's what matters. And pursuing it legally is not in the town's best interest at this point, spending taxpayer money on it.
Let me leave it with
Stephen,
if the town manager called the attorney for the buyer and clarified under what circumstance they're seeking release of the lien, is it a family member's house, therefore exempt? That it doesn't even require an attorney. But again, we're out of our jurisdiction a bit. So thank you for looking at it and reporting on what the selectmen actually did. I appreciate that.
So I think there's important key points that I just want to summarize. Number one, we know things have not always been done correctly in our town in the past. Number two, we are under the unfortunate circumstance of not having a full-time assessor. Even this gentleman that just passed away was not a full-time assessor. He was qualified, he was excellent, but he was part-time trying to help us out. Thirdly, we know that this town is faced with major financial issues and are very cautious about using funds to contact the firm that represents us in a legal capacity. And it sounds like the select board made the decision that this didn't qualify to go forward to legal review at this time, as I understood what Joy just said. And fourthly, the bottom line is the affidavit was filed, correct or not, by whom, correct or not, in the timely fashion, correct or not, and the back taxes will be collected. I think this is important to not forget how this is happening. We're recording this entire meeting. For anybody who's listening, we're not ignoring it. This is important. At this point, this particular property really isn't the one to go further on. And yet the research that you did, Stephen, and Joy representing the select board, hearing all of this, I think it's critical. And we want to make sure we move forward on this. Let's hope we can get a professional assessor in there in our role, and somebody who's knowledgeable about Chapter 61 and the correct filing, et cetera. Is it okay if we stop the discussion about this right now? I
just want to say one thing. I just want to say thank you to Stephen. I don't want it to come off like I'm trying to be too disagreeable or anything. I really appreciate all the research he did. And I do appreciate it when people bring concerns, because that's what this is all about. If there is a concern, that we can address it. And I'm happy that the open space is having this conversation.
Well, great. Thank you, Joy. And yes, it's fine with me to move on.
Thank you. For the minutes, Janet, we're referring to the Stolpinski property, Stolpinski, that was discussed at the previous meeting. Just otherwise, it'll just sound like a vague discussion because we never mentioned the actual property. All right.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great. So let's move on this. Other committee reports. CPC, Janet, do you want to report on CPC?
We haven't met again since the November meeting, which was before our last meeting. So no, nothing to report.
Okay, thank you so much. And I represent the planning board. From the standpoint of open space, there isn't anything to present. We are continuing to work on zoning bylaw review, and we put attention on affordable housing being a very critical need in our town. So that's just in process, and we're using PVPC. We had a DLTA grant last year, which stands for District Local. What does it stand for? It's through the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, And we're considering applying for another DLTA grant, which supports the research we need from professional planners. We're a town that runs primarily on volunteers, and we don't have enough professionals to provide the services we need. So we use grants to support other ways of getting things. I think that's all on committee reports. Anybody else wish to add anything from a committee standpoint? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Old business. Nobody from Kestrel Land Trust is going to be present tonight. I'm going to skip over the review of conservation project to two other items under old business. One was the committee charge. The committee charge, which we still haven't seen the final charge, according to Ed, several weeks ago, it's got to be re-signed at the select board. So I have no new news on that. I think it's important that a committee know what their charge is. So I will again go back to Ed to say, now that the new year has come and gone, can we please get a copy of the actual charge for our open space committee? The next is at-large members. Ed just mentioned that he today, I think it was today, wasn't it, Ed, that you completed the application, and as is required currently, a brief cover letter is requested with the application. That's not an old request, but they were not exactly pushing for it earlier. But if you have a chance, it's kind of like what you would put if you were filing to apply for a job, something that just said, this is who I am, this is why I'm applying, and this is why I think I'd be a good fit for this committee. Any questions about that, Ed, at all right now?
No, as I said, I just submitted it today, and
So the process is that once that's received, Ed Gibson, our town administrator, will bring that to the select board for review, and this is a select board appointment. So they will have a chance to review it, maybe ask questions, and Ed, you may be asked to go before the select board, go to the podium and just speak on your behalf. And if you know when that's going to happen and I can be present, I'd be very happy to be supportive of you and be present if it's possible, or anybody else that could be there. And I thank you very much for your interest. Great. Okay, moving on back to the conservation project. We are doing a great job. We heard yesterday that we won the Neighborhood Outreach Grant award. We had the holidays come and go. Terry Ann was really kind to offer to help on that. She got sick. I got crazy. And so it turned out that because I'd written these before, that I pretty much did the whole grant application, which was absolutely fine. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you what that grant application looked like. See if this works. Okay, can you see my screen? It's only 2 pages. If you wish me to email it to you, just so you know what we wrote, then I will be happy to do that. I will tell you, I'm going to scroll down if I can. How do I scroll down on that? Oops, that's not going to work. Here we go. All right, so the first several paragraphs are really just a minimal discussion of how valuable we in the town of Southampton consider our forests, ponds, streams, topography, farmlands, open spaces, et cetera. And we have a resource of a relatively unbroken forest that extends in all directions from Pomeroy Mountain and serves as a source of clean water for our region's rivers, reservoirs, and aquifers. Some of this was edited in by Kestrel Land Trust. They saw the draft. And yet we know our town is extremely attractive to residential developers. Our open space and recreation plan speaks of the goal of conservation of many of these unprotected properties. We've had 2 previous neighborhood outreach grants that brought together landowners in one regard or another. We also have had 2 properties acquired under the Drinking Water Supply Protection Grant. One was the current space on Lower Pomeroy Meadow Road, which is not very far from Norris School. And that is also is a very important over the Barnes Aquifer. And the second one, which was fairly recently last year, is another area that also is part of the recharge area to our town well, and that's on Upper Pomeroy Meadow, closer to the East Hampton line. If you were going north on Pomeroy Meadow Road, it would be on your left. Those are kind of things that we pointed out in the grant. We said that we're making progress and trying to bring together landowners, ultimately to apply for a landscape partnership grant in 2023 in partnership with Kestrel Land Trust and other partners, of course, financial partners. And then the final paragraph simply says that we need to do something more besides letters, emails, and phone calls. So when I met with Mark Walmsley and Bridget before the holidays, they proposed that we kind of step up our consideration for a project, for a bringing together, and move to holding something at Glendale Ridge Winery. I suspect all of you know where that is. Some of you have probably been there. It's really beautiful. And I think we're really fortunate to have that in our town. And I will say, and I this has to be confirmed, that I think the people that own Glendale Ridge are also interested in agricultural protection. And I need to fully confirm that, but that's my understanding. Once we draw together people, and this will be invitation only at Glendale Ridge, then we will do specific customized follow-up plans. Not everybody will attend this kind of event. Some people will not live in town. Some people will not think they want to attend. Some people will not be able to attend. We know that, and we're just going to do the best we can. The project objectives and outreach would be that we want to gather together up to 20 privately held parcels, the owners of 20 privately held parcels in the target area. And I'm going to share the map with you in a moment. And they're heavily forested for the most part, and they're at risk for development. And they're mostly in the northwest region of our town, up near the West Hampton or the Huntington line. They're all contiguous with other permanently conserved lands or themselves. Some of them, and then we added some other parcels that are closer to the center of town. Some of them are close to other conservation lands, and some of them are really just attractive to our Conservation Commission. There are also going to be a couple of invitees who own properties in other towns, specifically in Huntington, and one of the big properties actually goes right up into the West Hampton line. So because this is a partnership grant that we're ultimately hoping to apply for, we really want to, we said this before, to plug this idea of a partnership with other municipalities, partnership with other financial entities or conservation entities. The second goal is to facilitate open discussion with landowners and experts from Kestrel Land Trust, which will ultimately allow permanent conservation of people's lands, either by retaining their ownership of the land or by conveying a CR, either to a town or another entity, or by selling their property to an eligible public or private conservation entity. It's clear, it should be clear to everybody that this doesn't mean that the town will own all these properties. It may be another entity who will be a conservation entity that might ultimately own that. So Mark Walmsley and Bridget Leckley and I chatted a bit, and we came up with this idea of calling this entire project the Mountain Waters Project. And two things that I don't think I knew at the last meeting that I've subsequently learned. One is that the deadline for the filing of the Massachusetts Landscape Partnership Grant in 2023, I thought was in May. It's moved up to April. That may sound freaky to a lot of people. It doesn't bother me because that means we can get it over faster. And don't forget that Kestrel is going to be the lead. If somebody has questions, can you just wait till I finish? I can't hear if somebody's talking because I'm not seeing everybody on the screen right this moment. So the deadline is pushed up by a month. And don't forget, Kestrel is going to be the writer of this grant. The second is that the original goal minimum was 500 contiguous acres. That has changed to 250 contiguous acres. That means the requirement is less. It doesn't mean we'll only get less, because we're upwards to over 800 of potentially conserved properties based on the outreach we've done heretofore, and there might be more. Let's move down. I'm going to show you the attached map in a moment. Budget details. At this juncture in the committee meeting tonight, I put this out in the email. Terry Ann has already agreed to help on this project, and I'll help on it too. I'm going to be asking, after I talk a bit more, for a couple more people to agree to be on like a working group, because we've got to pull together a lot of stuff. We've got to pull together the caterer. We've got to finalize I do have 3 dates on hold at Glendale Ridge Winery. We could hold 2 events. We might only hold 1 event. We could have a snow date. We got to talk about customized invitations. I have a graphic artist, hopefully willing to help create a logo for this so we can make really snazzy invitations, I'm hoping. And Kestrel will be providing either their experts on their own staff, or they suggested we put in for an additional amount of money for additional experts that might need a honorarium of some kind. So the amount I asked for was $41.80, and that included glasses of wine. Well, guess what? The state will not support purchase of alcohol, nor will the federal government, and I understand that. I can't say for sure, but Mark, when he saw that that would not be supported, we only got $3,100. He suggested Kestrel, out of their own budget, might be able to support any wine that we were to consume that night. So some people will not consume wine, and it will be on a per glass basis. So it may not be that we utilize the full, you can see this line item right up here, $1,080. And some of these other costs, this is a high-end application for money. I kind of went with the most that we might need, and I suspect we're going to come in a lot less than that. So I also put these asterisks here that the conservative estimates are based on holding 2 events, though only 1 event may be needed, depending on the response to the invitations, thus reducing the estimates by half. And the wine, guest fees, and catering orders are based on 30 people per event, amount that will obviously go down if we have fewer attendees. Timeline. We need to get this rolling. It's already the first week in January. We need to finalize the booking of the event. We need to go forward and create the invitation. We need to get the invitation sent no later than January 23rd. We need to figure out customized follow-up plans with landowners, and that we're going to talk about in a moment, in coordination with Kestrel. And that needs to be achieved no later than late February, based on who attends or prior to the event. We might do follow-up phone calls to people who receive invitations if we don't hear back from them, like, are you sure you got it? And we'd really love to have you come, and, you know, the usual follow-up to an invitation. The desired outcomes: landowners will be informed and make decisions consistent with their interest in conserving their lands. Kestrel, the town of Southampton, and other partners will apply for the 2023 Massachusetts Landscape Partnership Grant with the support of other funders. Lands will be conserved in one of various ways. And finally, a plan for the conservation of areas with critical habitat and natural beauty that are still at risk, even after all this is done, for development, will be established for future action. We can't do it all. We might have to do some follow-ups. So that's the application. If anybody would like me to email that to you so you know what we applied for, I'm happy to do that. But I'm really pleased that it took 48 hours, rather fast, for this to be approved by, let's see, it was Sarah Wells she's chair of the committee. So that's one thing I'm going to share. And I'm going to stop sharing on this. And then I'm going to share screen again.
It's very detailed. detailed and clear about the outcomes. You have done a spectacular job.
Cool. All right. Let me see if I can find that map. Hold on. Oh, is this it? Oh, it's blank. Oh, I'm sorry. I did put this for sharing before we started, and it didn't come up. It is the map with an additional few properties that you saw at the last meeting, which I will email out. I apologize for it not coming up. What can I say? It's probably, oh dear. Well, I'm no. What's that?
I was going to say, am I muted? No. Southampton Landscape Partnership Active Inquiries. Is that the one dated November 29th? I'm looking
Can't
at
understand your question, Janet.
No, I'm just looking at the map right now. Is that the one you're looking for? The to send to us? I maybe everybody has the same thing I have.
Repeat what you said the title was, Janet. I didn't.
Southampton Landscape Partnership Active Inquiries.
Is it a map that you're looking at? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is, but I think we added a few more.
Okay.
We added some properties, smaller properties.
It's dated November 29th, 2023, but it probably should have been 2022.
Right.
You and I have discussed this one. I just thought maybe everybody might have a copy of it because I do.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to email to everybody a copy of the grant that I just reviewed, the grant application. That's neighborhood outreach grant. That's not the landscape partnership grant. And I'm also going to email you it's a PDF of the map. So here we are. It's good news. So now my question is, who would, besides Terry Ann, I'm not letting you go, Terry Ann, you're on the committee. Yeah, I mean, we won't call it a committee, we'll call it a work group. Is there any other people that would like to assist? I know, Paula, you're leaving town in a couple of weeks or sooner. And Diana, I absolutely don't expect her to join this because whenever I ask her to do anything, she just does it. So I know she has a lot of other things on her plate regarding the grants of the other things she's working on. Anybody else wish to be on this work group? Janet, are you able to?
How often do you plan to meet and where?
Very minimally. Very minimum.
Okay, I will.
Thank you. You're good because you help with mail merge, you help with.
I'll do my best.
I know you will. You always will.
Stephen will take a discrete task.
Okay, I appreciate that, Stephen, because I got a few discrete tasks for you. Joy, I know your hands are totally full right now with everything else. You have a full-time job and you have a family and you have a lot of, so I'm not expecting you to be on it, but you might get a discrete task or two. Is that okay?
That's fine to discreetly task me.
Okay. So Ed, I don't know if, I know you're not yet appointed, but you could still be on this work group that would probably meet at my house once or twice. And
yeah, I'm willing to do that. Yeah.
Thank you, Ed. All right. So that we have the work group, myself, Terry Ann, Janet, and Ed, and a lot of discrete taskers in the background. So that's great.
I'll help choose the wine.
No.
The taster.
That's a discrete task.
All right. All right. So that's great news. And I'm going to email you other three, Terry and Janet, Ed, to set up a meeting really soon because of stuff that's coming up, and we got to move forward. We got to move fast. And I hope you don't mind just coming to my house because, hey, you get a free cookie and some coffee or something or whatever you want. Come to my house. All right, moving on.
The driveway was off of, you're off of Glendale, but there's another street there that your driveway is off of?
Yes, it's Cold Spring Road.
Cold Spring Road, okay.
And if you were to turn off Pomeroy Meadow Road onto Glendale,
yeah,
coming from your end of town, sort of passing the post office, you keep going,
right,
you take a left on Glendale. My house is literally the first house on your left.
Okay.
Except that there's a cul-de-sac just prior to me that you don't want to turn down. It's called Glendale Woods. It's got 8 or 9 houses on it.
Okay.
And then if you were to turn left on Cold Spring,
Mhm.
that my driveway is 25 feet after you turn left and you pull in there. And we can talk about that a little bit more, but it's
Fine.
pretty easy to get to.
It sounds it.
Yeah, it really is. And we can go from there. And I don't know if you know, yeah, you were at my house one day too, weren't you? Because we were coordinating a hike or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know where it is.
Great, good. And I know you know, Janet. Great. Okay, we'll set that up later, the actual meeting time. Other news related to the whole project. Bridget couldn't make it here tonight, but she has a meeting set to go before the Hoyoke Waterworks, the Hoyoke Water Commission, on January 23rd. She wanted us all to know that. And I do know from an email from earlier today that they have brought in a new conservation manager. So they're doing orientation for a new person right now. And believe me, I will bang down their doors when the time is necessary, but I don't think we're right there yet. We're going to let them do the other things they need to do. Maybe some of you know this new, hold on, okay. The new conservation manager is somebody that was with Kestrel previously, named Lee Hallas, Halaszz. So
Yes, I worked with him.
I hear he's quite excellent, and he helped with the
Maps. Yeah.
Yeah, he
He's a
apparently
good map maker.
great. He apparently let the cows out of the pasture at the Fletcher farm or something. He didn't close the
Really?
gate.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
So I guess they're very excited to get this highly qualified person to join them on a full-time basis. So that's good. All right. At this point, I wonder, is there anybody wishing to ask more questions about the project, ideas, thoughts?
Bring me a fork and knife.
You got to mute, Diana, if you're talking to somebody else.
Sorry.
Who else? Any other comments at all at this point? All right. I'm going to email.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Stephen. I asked for comments. Yeah.
And you told us that you would share the confidential map. And given that this is a public meeting, I'm not exactly sure. I looked at my email. I didn't get it yet. I wasn't sure what exactly you meant.
What did you say? You didn't understand what I was saying? I didn't send out the map yet. Janet seems to think I got something out earlier, but I'm going to resend the exact one that was used to apply for the neighborhood outreach grant. So you will get a copy of that.
Thank you.
Secondly, Stephen, in terms of discrete tasks, you approached the people who own map 5, lot 1, 85 acres, plus I think another property up there on the West Hampton line, last name Zialo, D-Z-I-A-L-O, and you looked and you chatted with them. So they really are somebody we want to be sure to invite them, and they will get an invitation. So you're probably going to do at least a follow-up phone call to them and just invite them to come to this event. Doesn't mean they have to do anything. Doesn't mean anybody has to do anything. The second person,
happy to do that.
You tried to reach and you left a voicemail. Was that
Sliwa?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Sliwa. Okay, great.
Right.
So
with year-round residents in Fort Myers, Florida. So I don't have an email address, and I've gotten no response to several messages, both verbal and text, left on the telephone number that we've discussed. I think a mailed invitation to Fort Myers, whatever happened in Fort Myers, hopefully would get forwarded to the gentleman and his bride, if either of them are still living. I'm sorry to say they're well into their 90s, it seems, or at least 80s. I don't mean to.
I don't know, and maybe you and I can talk offline. what else we might do to make sure that somebody's got feedback here. Can you, everybody mute except me and Stephen? I don't know if we can, you and I, Stephen, talk offline to a little bit to figure out exactly whether or not you got the right email, a phone number, and whether there's anyone else. I think we could approach Darcy Gasparini on the Board of Assessors, who see what else they might have on that. I don't know the answer to that, but I think we.
Yes, I agree. That's a good strategy. Next step is to inquire with the assessors.
But the other thing we might do is send out like a trial letter, not the actual invitation. And I have the letterhead for Open Space Committee. If you want to draft a letter, and I'd be happy to print it or give you a copy of the Open Space Committee's letterhead. And you could say, I've been tempted to reach you. I've left you voicemails. I'm hoping you, and maybe even send that return receipt requested, just to see whether it gets signed for. You know what I'm saying?
I do, and I'll draft the letter and get it all ready to go. We can talk about strategy and how formal or not we want to be.
Great. Okay. We added a few properties. You're going to see that on the map, including there was a landowner, and I think the elder gentleman actually did pass away in the last few years, but the family is O'Connor. Diana will remember them, and they have 3 or 4, I think, different parcels in town. And they were very eager to talk about conservation, and they actually met with Mark a few years ago. And we are pursuing them. And these other properties are referred to as by Mark as satellite properties. Often they're connected with other conservation properties, but in some cases they're not. And so we're inviting hopefully somebody from them. They don't live in Florida. They live somewhere in Western Mass. But again, we're dealing with heirs at this point. That's always a challenging situation. We're also going to invite, and I'm happy to announce this publicly because he came to us, Charlie Touchette. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Middle Road. I bet you Paula knows this property very well. It's absolutely a beautiful piece of property on Middle Road, and it includes a large open space with a big kind of like farm lake pond in it. And he often has donkeys and cows and all kinds of stuff going down there. He approached the Open Space Committee a few years ago, and he said, sometimes the attention is always put on a different end of our town. They're putting it on the northwest end of the town and way up there, which of course is what we're doing. He says, don't forget, there's a lot of nice properties that he is constantly being contacted by developers because it is potentially a beautiful piece of property for development. And he really wanted to be brought into the sort of consideration for all of this. So he's going to be on that list of receiving it. There is a piece of property in Montgomery, and that family has also talked about conservation, and it's the Fowles family. These are members of Chris Fowles' family. She's our select board chair. And so she's aware of this. And the other list is people that we've either talked to before, or they've gotten letters, or they've attended meetings, or they've absolutely expressed an interest in conservation. So again, a lot of customization around that. What else can I say at this point? Do you have any questions? I mean, we really have a good list of people. It doesn't mean we're going to get everybody. It doesn't mean everybody wants to do it. And maybe that we miss some folks, but anything else to say at this point? All right, moving on. So Stephen, you'll work on those. We'll be working on those two together. Okay, the next thing under old business was review of 2022 goals and plans. I'm going to defer to a future time for that. Is everybody okay with that? If we got a lot on our plate. What do you think? Can we defer on future goals for right now? Okay. New business. I am, of course, being requested to submit for the town budget for review. for the 2024 fiscal year. Last year, we were awarded $500 from the town budget for the Open Space Committee. Good or bad, we didn't use any of it. So, because we had some postage already purchased, and we work with grants. Unless somebody wants to discuss this, I'm going to go ahead and re-up our application for 500 so we get to carry it forward in case we need it for something. We might want to go to a conference or something like that. Anybody want to discuss that idea of just continuing our request for the $500? Okay, not hearing anything. I will do that.
I mean, I was trying to unmute. Since everything seems to be going up, postage and everything is going up. Maybe it's 750?
Well, we didn't use any of it before, and you're absolutely right. The postage is going up.
Okay.
I'm a little nervous, Janet, that if we didn't use last year's money, they're going to say, what do you want more for? That's all I'm thinking about. And we are going to be able to cover postage on the stuff that we've already got on our plate with the grant right now. So
Okay. All right. Just a thought.
it's a good thought. I like it, but right now
We'll leave it at 500. Okay.
we'll wait till next year on that.
Okay.
Thanks. Next is the All-Town Report. Some of you are familiar with that. It's published every year. I haven't seen a request for it yet. I have completed it. It's kind of a one-pager, few paragraphs on what any board or committee does. This year, I would wonder if anybody else would like to volunteer to do the draft on the All-Town Report. And I'd be happy to review it. And I'm sure Diana might help review it. Diana, do you want to try to write that based on last year? Not your thing? That's okay.
No, I don't think Diana's good at that.
Well, we're not going to ask her to do it because but unless you want to do it, Diana, are you talking? You're not, are you muted?
She's muted.
Diana, you're muted. Diana, we can't hear you. Is that what you want? You don't want to be heard?
No, she's talking. It looks like.
There. When is this report due?
It's probably not due for several weeks.
Okay, if Janet sends me all the the minutes, which I don't save, I could do that.
They're all posted in My Town Government.
Ugh.
And you just look at what I've written the last couple of years. You can see how brief and
years.
summarizing it is.
That's in the All-Town Government?
All the notes up until tonight's.
My Town Government.
All the report is in My Town Government?
The
You
minutes
got to send that to me.
I will send you the last 2 years that I submitted to the town. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Short and to the point. The next thing is pretty important. Who here has this interest and expertise? The town of Southampton is moving forward on having a better presence on the town website. And they're allowing individual committees and boards to have their own website presence. But I don't have all the specifics. Maybe Diana knows more, and even Joy, maybe you know more, but are we individual boards and committees going to have to, create our own, whatever, not the whole website, but put our charge in there and put any statement and monitor it? I think it's a great idea. People don't know what a lot of boards and committees do, but what I'm looking for is a volunteer to work on that.
Do you have to know coding?
No. There's a professional website developer that's been contracted, as far as I understand. Is this right, Joy? Because you were in the meetings on that.
I know that something like that is happening. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact details. I do know the goal is that committees and boards will be able to put up their own information on there. But beyond that, I apologize. I don't have any more information. I will direct that question to Chris Fowles, who is on the ad hoc tech committee.
Right. I've actually chatted with her a little bit on this, not a lot, but
Okay.
the understanding is no, it's not coding, it's not creation, it's just putting content in, you know? So, and I am doing my best to maybe, as somebody said to me yesterday, I'm wearing too many hats and I'm taking a few hats off. Ed, is this something you have knowledge or expertise around, doing any kind of website things?
Not that particular type of, and I haven't done anything in the past with that, any type of websites like that. So,
Okay, well, fair
If
enough.
it's similar to like what my website is like, I could do it.
Okay. Well, Joy, if you want to just give a stab at it, and of course, there's the rest of us can help. But the goal, in my opinion, is to have anyone who looks on it know that we have an active committee, know that we're doing a lot of things, know who the people are, know how to contact us. Those are the goals. That's, you know, it's about, if you go online, you know, the worst part would be nothing to me, you know, or misinformation. So Joy, if you want to work on that and let us know how to help, I'm happy to do that. If you want to take kind of the lead on that. Is that
Sure.
good?
Yeah.
I mean, what about Dan LaValle? He's quite capable. Do we still work with him?
No, he's on the tech committee and he's on parks. And I spoke to Chris today, and he actually has a new job, which takes him to Canada. Is this right, Paula?
Yeah.
He's,
Every other week. He goes.
you're
every
muted,
week.
Paula. Paula, you're muted.
Dan goes to Canada every other week.
Yeah, he has that new job, and that's keeping him very busy. He hasn't been able to come to very many of the park meetings. So I would say he probably wouldn't have the time.
Okay. He's just very capable, and
Well, he is very capable. But the thing is, it's not about the tech capability. It's about the content, because the tech capability will be the consultant or the part-time person they're hiring or whoever it is. I know they were looking at various firms. So it's really content. So Joy, if you want to do exactly that, just kind of take the lead on that. Contact me with any questions. And, you know, we as a committee can, you know, agree to the content if that's helpful. And I thank you very much for that.
Sure.
Okay. So any other business that cannot wait? I have been getting emails from Mass Woods, excuse me, the open space, the open space meetings formally were always held live. I went to one a few years ago. I think Diane and I drove somewhere. We got lost. I don't know how we got there, but we somehow got there. And it was great. And they had, large plenary sessions, and then they broke out into various rooms, and it was super. But now they're doing it still online. It's free, and some of it might be of interest to you. So if you haven't been receiving those invitations, I'm going to forward that to you as well. And I think there's just the option to sign up and do a Zoom thing online. It might be of interest. Some of them may not be. So that's an option for you. Any
the
comment?
other ones we recently got from Cantazano, or what is his name?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Did anybody else get that besides Janet and me?
I did.
Yeah. All right. Then I'm going to forward it to other people, just so you'll have it. Also, I'm going to go before the select board during open time for the public. And this is what Chris and I agreed to, that as opposed to just being an agenda item at their next select board meeting, which I think is not this Tuesday, it's next Tuesday, the week after. Let's see, the 17th. Is that right, Joy? At 6:00.
Yes.
I'm going to just go and during open time for the public, just to give an extremely brief report about the actions we're doing at this point, just because I feel the select board should be fully informed and have the chance to ask questions about what we're doing, so they're not entirely blindsided. I'm also going to ask you, Janet, to let Virginia know that this is happening. And if we get to the point of a filed landscape partnership grant, there will be an element that will require a match from the town. Maybe not a ton, but some money from the town. So I know, doesn't Virginia always like to have a heads up on this when these things are coming along?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we don't have any specifics, but you should just let her know that this, if you don't mind, that this is happening.
Cindy?
Yes, dear.
Who is Virginia?
Oh, sorry. I guess you haven't been in town long enough.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Virginia is an important institution in our town. Virginia Ahart, A-H-A-R-T. She actually stood at the most recent special town meeting. She is part and perhaps was the original, am I right about this, Janet? The original person who made sure Southampton was one among the very first towns to get the CPA, the CPA recognition for the state of Massachusetts.
That's right. She's been the chairperson since the beginning of the Community Preservation Committee.
So she's very capable and has tremendous institutional knowledge. She is also deals with a consultant when questions come up about whether something would be in line with potentially using CPA money for something. She chairs the committee, and the committee is of, except for Janet, who's elected, and Virginia, who's elected, the rest of its appointments from select board, planning board. I'm from the planning board and conservation commission, and goes down the line. If you ever want to attend a CPC meeting, they're posted and they're not often because they don't need to be often. They're not regular. And recently they've been Zoom. Does that help you, Stephen, a little bit?
Yes, it's wonderful to see it in operation in my hometown. I worked with Bob Duran to pass the thing.
Very good.
Good. All right. So is there any other business to bring up tonight? Okay, next meeting. I am going to ask that we can meet a little more than sooner than a month from now, because we got a lot going on. And I know you're leaving, Paula, but is it okay if we schedule a meeting for Thursday, January 19th? It could be a short and sweet meeting, but I do think we should schedule a meeting. Is that okay for everybody? We could do Zoom if it's best. Joy, does this work best for you, the Zoom thing?
Yes, that would be wonderful. I have a trial all day that day, so I would love to just be at home.
What's going to happen that day? I didn't hear you.
I'm in trial all day, so I would love to just be at home.
Okay. We won't be a trial to you then. You can have your own trial earlier.
6 o'clock.
Is that okay? 6 o'clock Zoom and on the 19th. And it could be a snowy day. So we might be thrilled that we have a Zoom. And I think that's it. And in the meantime, the working group, Ed, Janet, Terry Ann, and me, will have a lot more information and we'll know a lot more about where we're going with this whole gathering of landowners. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions about anything, just because I'm very committed to this. Let's see, what else? Anything else? Can I say Happy New Year and a sincere thanks to all of you for the work you put in? No matter what it is so appreciated by me. I really thank you. What else have we got? Is that it? Should we adjourn?
Yes.
Motion?
So moved with thanks.
Second? All right, we adjourn. Thank you. Paula, have a good time in warm and sunny Florida. Stay away from your rays or something. You're muted, but I can read your lips.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay, bye. I'm going to end the recording.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.